Yeah, I mean, I certainly, when I was, our first workout's going to be in a couple hours, and when I was kind of formulating a plan for it and kind of putting personnel, it made me realize, like, no Jada, no Sarah. I've written Sarah's name on a lot of practice plans since I've been here. No Yaya, no Aaliyah. So I think we certainly have some things to figure out. But I think a good place to start is with our senior class. I think obviously with Bella and Bugs, and really Jana. She's making amazing progress and is on pace to be back at that 9-month mark. And so, when I think about the fact that we have 4 players, that Kyla made a big jump last year, and so having 4 players in our program that are starting year 4. And that's unusual in this day and age, and I think they're all going to impact us significantly. So it's a good place to start in terms of leadership, expectations. I think they have a sense of unfinished business, and it's, I know that when freshmen go to college, it seems like you're going to be there forever. And then you blink and you're going into your last season. And so I think they have that sense. I mean, Janice is different. She's coming back from an injury, and it's year 6, and so that looks a little different. But I think for the other 3, it's a big, like, eye opener that, wow, I remember when we were freshmen, and now we're the seniors. And so that's what I like. I think we've got a lot of really good pieces, but I think the idea that we have 4 players that are in year 4 with our program really allows them to set the tone in the locker room. I think our culture was never better than it was this past season. And I think that had a lot to do with our continuity from the year before, and really just adding Wise and Nettie, and Kayla, our freshman Nez didn't play last year, but and so I think we have a chance to kind of keep that going because of that group.
All the new coaches on the staff. What do you like about the voices that you hear in that room now, and what do they add? Obviously, Johnny brings some head coaching.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question. I think that we've had a ton of continuity since we've been here, and when you lose people, it's when it's for really good reasons, when they choose family, when they choose spouses, it's hard not to be happy for them. I think it was a hard decision for Sophia. I think she was really getting her footing on the coaching side of things, but I also think, she wants to be there when her kids go to school and be there when they get home from school, and I respect that. I've one of the few probably head coaches out there that have had moments of being a stay-at-home parent, and at the time it wasn't easy, but I'm grateful that I had that opportunity. So sad to not have them, but I also think it allowed me to a little bit, like, just kind of reimagine and reshape our staff. 2 years ago, when you were allowed to have 5 people on the court, 5 people recruiting, we kind of moved people on the court. I didn't have the ability to go out and hire people that maybe could impact us at a full capacity. And so this has been a unique opportunity for me to really, I think Johnny, obviously an elite recruiter, head coaching experience, understands what it means to sit in my chair. And that's what Tari had too. A little bit different, but I think she brings a veteran presence. I think she brings the mother figure to our staff. I think she's an elite connector of people, and just has won at a high level. I mean, has been to multiple Final Fours, has won a national championship, and knows what it takes to push to help her teams. Because when they were at Mississippi State, they weren't stacked with 12 McDonald's All-Americans. They were stacked with a couple All-Americans and then a lot of toughness. And so no different than her Texas A&M days. So I think she brings a lot of experience and a lot of like a winning culture. Jalen is I truly believe like someone that is going to be an up-and-comer in our business. Wanted to find somebody that would have a unique voice with our players. She's super positive. I'm a big believer in I don't move quickly. It may seem like I move quickly, but we knew some things, before, and I'm a big believer in dotting I's and crossing T's, and it's not about what they know. And it doesn't mean that I don't care about what they know, but I'm pretty confident in my basketball knowledge, and you can find out a lot of things from people that assistants have worked for. I want to know, like, what kind of humans are they? Do they believe in our Baylor mission? Is faith important to them? Are they going to be a good connector to our players? Are they going to pour into our players? And I think Jalen is just her energy is super positive, which I know when everyone meets her, we'll feel that. We'll just kind of feel that energy, and I think it'll be great in recruiting. It'll be great for our players that are currently here. A little bit different voice, a little bit younger than me. And then, I think Tez is someone in this day and age where most of these players have grown up with basketball trainers. I've joked before that the basketball trainers in my generation were moms and dads and anyone who would rebound for you. But I think this idea of how they train and connecting the dots, I think it's really important. I always say this. You could say this probably about any profession. There's elite coaches, there's terrible coaches, and most people are somewhere in between, and I think basketball trainers get a bad rap because they're throwing tennis balls and dribbling, and there's more cones instead of people, and then the people, cones become people when players play. And sometimes players look like they're playing against cones, and that's the disconnect in basketball in terms of their development. But I think when you have someone that understands how to build a player up, how to help them grow, and then you have the resources. I always say, like, we don't have to use cones because we have GAs and we have practice players and we have more staff, and I think that's, so I think he's going to bring a lot to the table in terms of development. And, the first person I called when I heard he was interested was Coach Tang. And I said, tell me about Tez Dumars. And the first thing he said is he's a stud. And the second thing he said was he's an unbelievable human. And so that was a really good place to start. You guys don't know this, but I would guess that when I first got here, Coach Tang came into our practices 3-4 days a week. Like he's just, he was around. Like I probably got to know him better at the beginning than Scott, because he just was so into learning, and obviously sometimes easier to do when you're an assistant coach. But really excited about the way this staff can work together and function at a really high level and do some things that we haven't been able to do in the past. Yeah, I think, it was a long time from April 7th. I think we were, that April 7th date we've been hearing for months. And then it was, are we ever going to sign this? Like, come on, Judge. I think it's been, something that we've been talking about for over a year. It's something we obviously let Mac and Linda and, take the lead on. And I just, I'm grateful because I feel like we're positioned to be successful in this space. And that's the most important thing to me. I've always said, like, the expectations, the resources have to match the expectations. And, and as much as I will always say, like, we will do more with less because of who we are and our mission. We certainly want to be in the game, and I feel like our administration has put us in position to be successful in this new model. And we'll see over time how it all normalizes, but really grateful, for what Mac has done for our program. Yeah, here's what I would tell you. There's a uniqueness about it right now, and until there's some rules and regulations around it, yes, paying players, yes, understanding the dynamics of dealing with people that are making money and personalities and managing people, Yes, I think I don't have I will tell you, in a day and age of NIL, I've never had a team more connected and never had a team get paid more than last year's team did. So, like, I don't think that there's this direct correlation between entitlement and not working and all those things tied, correlated to, do they make money? What does that look like? I think the unique challenge is the portal more than it's the house settlement or revenue share, because I don't care what professional league. There are very few professional leagues that players are unrestricted free agents every year. And I think that's the nature of what we're dealing with. And so when you can model, I'm used to a cap sheet. I can, but a cap sheet was not a lot different than a depth chart in recruiting in the old days. Because you had players in each class. This is the position we're losing. This is, so it was position based. Who's graduating when, and it was position based. On a cap sheet, are they on a 4-year rookie scale deal? Are they on a 3-year? Are they one of our 6 guaranteed contracts? Are they, the CBA will probably be a lot more complicated, this next one, in the WNBA, but quite frankly, I was never technically a GM, but functioned alongside my GM in a role where I could have done it, because I understood the collective bargaining agreement. I understood how to write a contract. I understood the language, what you could and couldn't do. We had tampering rules. We had, so I think the uniqueness of all of this, yes. Do I have experience? Does it look like the WNBA? No, because yes, a player could force a trade, but then you could get something out of that. When a player wants to leave, there's nothing that we gain from that. And so I think from that perspective, there's similarities, and I think we were ahead of the curve. I will say this: super grateful for David Kay, and over the last, I would say 14, 15 months, I think we've done it as well as anyone in the country in terms of how we managed our players and contracts and things like that. So I think we were very comfortable and ahead of the curve, maybe partially because of him and partially because I understood the idea of having players on contracts. But I don't think that I have all the answers because I was in the league, because you can't, you can look at your roster and know that at any point someone could leave, and it could be a starter. It could be, someone that you're going to rely on. And so, I think that's the challenge right now. It's the combination of the NIL, the rev share with the unlimited transfer, which I've said since I got back into college coaching. All of those things have changed. And so the job that Mac hired me to do is a very, very different job than the one he hired me for. But I think it's the day and age of like adapt and survive. And, I think we're about being adaptable and surviving, and not just surviving, but the goal to thrive. So.
Obviously, you said in the future that Baylor's pretty set up for success, but kind of talk about the present. Like, how do you feel about this team that you guys have pulled together, and just all the pieces that are filling in those gaps as players come up?
Yeah, I think like everybody, your greatest fear is, we've got some players coming back from injury and, wanting people to be healthy. I love our roster. I love our depth. I think we can play a lot of different ways. We don't have Aaronette Vonleh. We don't have anyone like Aaronette Vonleh. But that's okay. We did okay with a 6'5" player in Dre Edwards. And so I think there's a lot of different ways, to be successful. And I like the versatility of this roster. I think this roster can play at the highest pace that we've ever played at here. I think we can shoot it as well or better than any team that we've put on the floor here. And so I think we have the ability to be great spacing wise. But we've certainly got to stay healthy. We need Nez, to be able to play. We need things to keep moving in the right direction with Jana. It's just so that we have point guard depth. Talia's coming off a season-ending injury, and we'll be coming back from that. So when you think about the players that can play the point, there's a couple question marks. But I think, if they're healthy, we have elite depth, and that position. So that is my greatest fear with this team. But I think we've got a lot of elite pieces that can be really fun to watch. Tony will have to figure out the defense, but I think we can score.
You feel like more depth maybe than last year? I know that was the big talking point that we talked about.
Yeah, I mean, the reality of last year's team was the most depth we've ever had. It's the most players we've played consistent minutes. We relied on the depth because we had injuries that then, like Madison was in our rotation. And obviously when we lost Bugs, that meant Wise got more minutes because everybody shifted down a position. And so, there really wasn't anyone on our roster a year ago that I couldn't play. And you can't say that every year. Like, there are players on your roster that are just not quite ready. And I don't feel like that was the case last year. I felt like there were times when Kayla Nelms gave us good minutes. We need her to make that big freshman to sophomore jump because she has a high skill level, both around the rim and from the perimeter, which people don't realize because she shot 19% from three. But I think, so many players make their biggest leap between their freshman year and sophomore year, and we're going to need that. And, we're going to need that from her. But I think if we're healthy, I think we have as much depth as we've ever had. And I also think our lineups can shift a lot more than they've ever shifted. So there will be threads of what we've done over the last 4 years because there are things that we're always going to do. But when it comes to us offensively, like, there's going to be a lot of differences as well, and that's for me. Like, I've said it from the beginning. I'm not a plug-and-play coach. I don't need to replace players with someone that plays just like them or looks just like them. I want to get the best collection of players I can get and figure out how to make them, work well together. And so, this team will not function like last year's team, but I think it can function at a high level. What's the biggest fear? We lost 400 assists. I think that's, that's the biggest challenge is, and probably more than that. I know Jada had 190 and Sarah had 180. So we were at almost 400. You add the rest of those guards, I promise you were over 400, but I don't know what the exact number is. But that's what we're going to have to replace, players that get the ball to other players. I don't like, you think about Kira, like we went hard after Kira Pemberton, and she's North Dakota. Like we just knew, she was somebody that, had a chance, maybe not right away, because of the nature of her position and, some similarities with Bella and Bugs, but we felt like, you can't teach her motor. I mean, she plays so fast. I mean, it just, she runs the floor so hard. She's very similar to Bugs that way. Like she's going to put rim pressure on because she's going to play with pace. But we kind of looked in every direction. It just happened that SMU became Power 4 this year. And I think, before I'd ever hired Johnny, like I had put up a big net around Talia, with kind of her circle. And so we really had that done, and then obviously I think with Yu Ting, when you come over to this country and you don't speak English, at 17 years old, she certainly is extremely comfortable with Johnny. And so I don't think there's any doubt that, that was our selling point to her. But, so I think sometimes it's just networking, sometimes it's need, sometimes, I guess the players that, didn't choose us were also P4. So maybe we did lean that way, but we didn't lean that way necessarily purposefully. But we had big needs to fill. So, having players that have played and had success, you score double figures in the SEC, you're probably going to do all right. It's really important. I love summers, and I'm not a we'll do a team practice in some ways today because I'm trying to figure out who can do what and where are we at and how do I divide them up. But I'm a little different. I think summer is about personal development. I think it's growth 2-on-2 and 3-on-3. I'm super nerdy when it comes to the game of basketball, and the game is really played in 2s and 3s. You're either on a 2-player side or a 3-player side. So the more we can learn to play in 2 and 3-player actions, the easier it is to put them all together and figure out what we can be great at. Like, I didn't go into necessarily last summer thinking, wow, this is going to be a great pin down team, and if you look at a lot of our success, yes, we played in ball screens and had success, but we played more middle ball screen than wing ball screen this year. Jada was just better there, and I figured that out in year 2 with her. But we were great in pin downs, and that was something I saw in the summer. Like, we get that 5-2, 5-3 pin down. Our guards can read it. They can score off of it if you go under it. So we got really good at those reads. So that to me, summer's about individual development. It's about 2s and 3s. If they want to play, they can play. I'm not going to require it. I'm certainly not going to watch it because it's I don't like watching pickup. So that to me, and it's a chance to build under a low pressure situation. I think you're not playing games. You don't have a lineup created. Nobody's at the point where they're wondering if they're going to get minutes or not. It's just a time where they get to know each other. We do a lot of things off the floor. We hit Waco Surf. We hit the movie theater. We do a lot of things to help them really connect. And we try to get better at basketball, and I think that's what I love about the summer. There's low stress. They're all in a good mental space. They haven't gone through that first bout of adversity when they don't play or don't have success or whatever. And so it's a bit of a utopia. Love a good summer utopia. Oh man. I do not play pickup. I am just happy to be back. We had our morning workout this morning at McLean, and I was able to do the field sprints and we do the uphill tunnel sprints. But I did not get to the stadiums yet. I'm actually a year removed from my foot surgery. So by end of summer, I hope to be doing stadiums with them as well. But no, I don't play a lot of pickup. Now, I don't think any of them could beat me in a shootout. But that's no defense. I don't want to play defense. I don't want to get around a screen. My last days of noon ball were probably 2010, 12-ish, and Mike Anderson is one of the most competitive humans I've ever, if you play on his team, you will win because he won't lose. But you also don't take bad shots or you'll get called out in a noon ball pickup game. So, but yeah, that was kind of my last bout of pickup. Now I'm just a shooter. I will demonstrate defense and demonstrate defensive technique, but I still have these vivid memories of being like a freshman and sophomore at Purdue and Lynn Dunn demonstrating being on the midline and a skip pass crossover step closeout and going, if I ever coach, I never want to look like that. So we just used to laugh. And so I never want to be I can be pretty self-deprecating and laugh at myself, but I also have just enough pride that I want to look good doing whatever I'm doing. So, you got to draw the line, where you still think you can look good doing something. I'm not demonstrating if I can't look good doing it. All right.